Have you ever wondered why, after years of prayer, church attendance, and spiritual seeking, you still feel like something is missing? Like there's a divine presence you're desperately trying to reach, but it always seems just beyond your grasp? What if I told you that the very thing you've been searching for in temples, sacred texts, and through countless spiritual teachers has never actually left you for even a single moment? This isn't just another inspirational message or religious platitude. This is the revolutionary truth that Smith Wigglesworth discovered through decades of profound spiritual experience. A truth so transformative that it completely altered the course of his life and the lives of thousands who encountered his ministry. And here's the most shocking part. You don't need years of theological training, mystical experiences, or special spiritual gifts to access this reality. It's already within you, right now, in this very moment. But before we begin, please, hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now, most people spend their entire existence looking for God in all the wrong places. They travel to holy sites, study ancient scriptures until their eyes blur, attend service after service, hoping that somehow, somewhere, they'll finally make contact with the divine. Has this ever happened to you? That feeling of spiritual hunger that never quite gets satisfied, no matter how many books you read or how many prayers you offer? Smith Wigglesworth understood this struggle intimately. He wasn't born with supernatural insight or divine revelation handed to him on a silver platter. In fact, his early years were marked by the same spiritual seeking, the same sense of separation from God that plagues so many seekers today. He tried every traditional religious channel available to him, following the prescribed paths, doing everything he was told would bring him closer to the divine presence. And yet, despite his sincere efforts, he found only temporary satisfaction, brief moments of inspiration that would fade as quickly as they came. But then something extraordinary happened, not through years of seminary education or memorizing theological doctrines, but through a moment of pure, unfiltered recognition that would change everything. In the depths of spiritual contemplation, during a state of complete surrender and openness, Wigglesworth experienced something that shattered every assumption he'd held about the nature of God and his relationship to the divine. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might completely transform your understanding of who you really are. In that pivotal instant, Wigglesworth didn't find God somewhere out there in the cosmos. He didn't receive a message from heaven or hear a booming voice from the clouds. Instead, he discovered something far more profound, far more intimate, the Christ consciousness that had been present within him all along, never separate, never distant, not even for a millisecond. This wasn't a theological concept or a religious belief system. This was direct experience, an undeniable recognition of divine presence as the very essence of his being. And here's where this teaching becomes absolutely revolutionary. The moment this recognition dawned in Wigglesworth's consciousness, everything changed. And I mean everything. This wasn't a gradual shift over years or a slow accumulation of spiritual wisdom. The transformation was immediate and undeniable. Chronic illnesses that had plagued his body for years simply disappeared, not through medication, not through medical intervention, but through the pure recognition of his divine nature. The financial lack that had created constant worry and stress in his life vanished as if a dam had broken, and abundance began flowing naturally into his experience. Now, here's what most people completely miss about this kind of transformation. Wigglesworth didn't sit down and try to believe really hard that he was divine. He didn't force himself to accept a new religious doctrine or repeat positive affirmations until his mind was numb. The shift happened at a level far deeper than intellectual belief or emotional conviction. It was a recognition, a sudden, clear seeing of what had always been true, but had remained hidden behind layers of conditioning, religious programming, and societal expectations about who we're supposed to be. This is where the real revolution begins, and it's precisely where most spiritual teachings fall tragically short. They give you concepts to believe in, rituals to perform, prayers to recite. They tell you that if you do enough, try hard enough, become good enough, then maybe, just maybe, you'll earn God's favor or achieve enlightenment. But what Wigglesworth discovered shatters that entire paradigm completely. If this resonated with you, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Every video here takes you deeper into these life-changing truths that actually transform your experience. Understanding that Christ lives within you isn't about adopting new beliefs or changing your theological perspective. It's about discovering the consciousness that's experiencing these very words right now. Think about it for a moment. There's an awareness present in you at this very second that's reading, comprehending, processing this information. Behind all your thoughts about what you had for breakfast, your worries about tomorrow, your memories of yesterday, there's a pure awareness simply observing all of it. That awareness, that consciousness that exists prior to and beyond all mental activity, is what Wigglesworth recognized as Christ consciousness itself, expressing uniquely as his individual being. This isn't some abstract mystical concept reserved for saints and spiritual masters. This is the fundamental reality of your existence right now. The divine presence you've been seeking in churches, books, and through spiritual practices is the very consciousness through which you're seeking it. It's like spending your entire life searching for your glasses while they're sitting on your nose the whole time. The journey, the search, the longing, it's all happening within the very consciousness you're looking for. Now, I want to go even deeper into this hidden truth because what happens when you truly grasp this recognition changes not just your spiritual life, but every single decision you make, every relationship you have, every challenge you face. The impact ripples through your entire existence in ways that seem almost miraculous to those watching from the outside, yet feel completely natural to you once you're living from this awareness. Write in the comments, "I'm ready to recognize this," if this resonates with something deep inside you. When this understanding truly takes root in your consciousness, something absolutely extraordinary happens to your entire relationship with problems, challenges, and difficulties. And this is where most people experience the biggest shift in their daily lives. You stop fighting against circumstances. You stop desperately trying to change conditions through sheer willpower or endless effort. Instead, something fundamental shifts in how you perceive and experience challenges. Here's the profound truth that changes everything. The divine consciousness within you is already completely whole, perfect, and lacking absolutely nothing. Think about what that really means. If your true identity, the consciousness observing all your experiences, is already whole, then no external circumstance can actually diminish or damage what you fundamentally are. Now, this doesn't mean that problems magically vanish the moment you recognize this truth. Your car still needs repairs, bills still arrive in the mail, relationships still have their complexities, but your fundamental relationship to these situations transforms so completely that even the same exact circumstances feel entirely different when experienced from this recognition. It's like watching a movie that used to terrify you, but now you remember it's just images on a screen. The movie hasn't changed. The monsters are still there. The suspense is still present. But your relationship to it has transformed because you remember what's actually real and what's simply appearance. This is what Wigglesworth called divine indifference. And it's one of the most misunderstood concepts in spiritual teaching. People hear the word indifference and immediately think it means becoming cold, detached, or uncaring about human suffering. But that's not it at all. Divine indifference is a profound inner peace that remains completely unshaken, regardless of whatever outer appearances may be presenting themselves in your experience. It's not that you don't care about outcomes or that you become passive in the face of injustice. It's that you've discovered an inner stability, a center of peace that exists prior to and independent of circumstances. You can still take action, make decisions, work toward goals, but you're no longer at the mercy of results. Your peace doesn't depend on things going your way. Fear begins losing its grip on your consciousness in the most remarkable ways when you live from this recognition. And here's why. Fear fundamentally depends on identifying yourself as a vulnerable human personality subject to all the random forces and circumstances that seem to control life. When you know, not just believe but actually know, your true identity as spiritual being, as consciousness itself, fear has nowhere to anchor. It's like trying to scare a mountain with a shadow. The recognition of what you are simply doesn't resonate with fear's frequency anymore. The transformation in your mindset becomes obvious in how you handle situations that would have previously sent you into anxiety spirals or sleepless nights. A difficult conversation at work, an unexpected bill, a health concern. These things still appear in your experience, but they no longer have the power to disturb the deep peace you've discovered within. And people around you start noticing this shift. They can't quite put their finger on it, but there's something different about your presence, something steady and reassuring that wasn't there before. Let me show you exactly how this plays out in real, tangible ways that you can actually measure and experience in your own journey. Write in the comments, "I choose peace," if you're ready to experience this shift in your own life. The real challenge most people face isn't having this recognition, it's maintaining it. You've probably experienced this yourself. Maybe during meditation you touch something profound, a sense of peace or expanded awareness that feels absolutely real and transformative. Or perhaps while watching a sunset, or in a moment of deep silence, you suddenly sense the divine presence so clearly that it takes your breath away. But then what happens? You step back into your daily routine, someone cuts you off in traffic, you get a frustrating email, the kids start fighting, and suddenly that profound recognition feels like a distant memory. This is where most spiritual seekers get stuck in a frustrating cycle. They have beautiful experiences during their dedicated spiritual practice time, but then spend the rest of their day operating from their old patterns of fear, worry, and reactive behavior. It's like having a treasure chest of gold but only opening it for 20 minutes each morning during meditation, then living the rest of the day as if you're broke. The secret that Wigglesworth discovered, and this completely changed the game for him and everyone he taught, was learning to maintain recognition of his divine nature consistently throughout all daily activities. Every single situation became an opportunity to express his inherent spiritual nature, rather than reacting from limited human personality. Washing dishes, having difficult conversations, making business decisions, facing disappointments. Each moment was a chance to live from the recognition of what he truly was. And here's the beautiful part. This didn't require constant effort or spiritual strain. It was simply remembering, gently returning to awareness of the truth whenever he noticed he'd forgotten. But there's something even more revolutionary at the core of Wigglesworth's teaching, something that completely shatters the entire spiritual achievement paradigm that dominates most religious and mystical traditions. Are you ready for this? You don't need to become spiritual. You don't need to achieve enlightenment. You don't need to earn God's love through years of discipline, practice, or self-improvement. Every single one of those approaches assumes you're currently lacking something fundamental that you need to acquire, develop, or work toward. What if that entire framework is backwards? What if the very seeking, the striving, the trying to become something more spiritual than you already are, is actually the obstacle preventing you from recognizing what's already present? Wigglesworth discovered that Christ consciousness isn't something you develop through techniques or achieve through spiritual practices. It's something you discover has always been fully present as your true identity. Right now, in this moment, without changing anything about yourself or your circumstances, the divine consciousness you're seeking is the consciousness through which you're seeking it. This completely transforms your entire approach to spiritual life. Instead of climbing a mountain to reach enlightenment at the peak, you realize you've been standing at the summit all along, just looking in the wrong direction. The journey isn't about getting somewhere you're not. It's about recognizing where you've always been. Every meditation technique, every spiritual practice, every teaching you've encountered can now serve its true purpose. Not to make you into something you're not, but to help you recognize what you've always been beneath all the layers of conditioning and false identity. Let me reveal exactly how this recognition manifests in practical, tangible ways that completely transform how you navigate everyday decisions and challenges. Write in the comments, "I already am," if this revelation is landing in your awareness right now. When this recognition becomes real for you, not just intellectually understood but actually lived, your entire approach to existence flips upside down in the most liberating way imaginable. Think about how most people relate to the divine. They're constantly in a posture of asking, seeking, trying to get something from God. They pray for healing, Pray for abundance, pray for peace, pray for guidance, as if these things are somewhere out there that need to be delivered to them like packages from heaven. There's nothing wrong with prayer, but this entire framework assumes separation between you and the source of what you need. What Wigglesworth discovered transforms this dynamic completely. Instead of constantly trying to get something from God through prayer, you begin naturally expressing as God through every thought, word, and action that flows from you. Instead of seeking healing from external sources, whether medical, spiritual, or alternative, you recognize your inherent wholeness that has never actually been damaged or diminished by any appearance of illness or limitation. Instead of pursuing abundance as something you lack and need to attract or manifest, you express from the infinite supply that already exists within your own consciousness. Hit that like button if this shifted something for you. It helps this message reach others who are searching for exactly what you just discovered. Can you feel the shift in energy here? One approach is exhausting, always reaching, striving, hoping that if you pray hard enough or long enough, you might finally receive what you need. The other approach is liberating, recognizing that the source of everything you've been seeking is the very consciousness through which you're seeking it. You're not a beggar at heaven's gate hoping for scraps. You're the expression of divine consciousness itself, and everything that consciousness is flows naturally through your awareness and experience. But here's where this gets truly remarkable, and it's something that happened thousands of times throughout Wigglesworth's ministry. When this understanding becomes your lived reality, rather than just an interesting concept you think about occasionally, something profound begins happening to people around you. They start experiencing healing and transformation simply by being in your presence, without you doing anything special or trying to help them in any deliberate way. You're not performing healings. You're not using techniques or methods. You're not even consciously directing energy or prayers toward them. This is the hidden mechanism behind every genuine spiritual teacher's impact that most people completely miss. Wigglesworth facilitated profound healings for thousands throughout his years of ministry, yet he never claimed to heal anyone. He never took credit for the miraculous transformations that occurred. What was he doing? He was simply remaining consistently conscious of spiritual truth about himself and others, creating an atmosphere where people could recognize their own divine nature and experience the natural healing that flows from that recognition of their true identity. Your presence becomes a mirror that reflects back to people what they truly are beneath all their suffering, limitation, and false identification with problems. You're not fixing them or changing them. You're holding steady in the recognition of truth, while their own consciousness awakens to what has always been present. The transformation happens through their recognition, not through your effort. This is why Wigglesworth could facilitate healing while remaining completely humble and ordinary in his demeanor, never claiming special powers or elevated spiritual status. Now let me show you exactly how this principle operates. In specific concrete situations that you'll immediately recognize from your own life experience, write in the comments, "I am the presence," if you're beginning to sense the power of what we're uncovering here. Let me share with you exactly how this plays out in real lives, because these aren't abstract theories or mystical concepts floating in some spiritual realm. These are concrete transformations that happen when someone moves from intellectual understanding to lived recognition of their divine nature. Sarah had been trapped in chronic anxiety disorder for 15 years. 15 years of trying every available therapy, every medication her doctors prescribed, breathing techniques, cognitive behavioral approaches, meditation apps, healing modalities. You name it, she tried it. She'd spent thousands of dollars and countless hours seeking relief from the constant worry and fear that dominated every aspect of her daily experience. Her heart would race at random moments, her mind would spiral into worst-case scenarios, and simple decisions like choosing what to eat for lunch could trigger overwhelming panic. When she first encountered Wigglesworth's teaching about Christ consciousness being her true identity, her initial reaction was dismissive. She thought, "How is some religious concept going to help me with real psychological and physical symptoms?" It felt impractical, maybe even insulting, to suggest that recognizing some spiritual truth could address what clearly felt like a serious mental health condition requiring professional treatment. But something deeper than her skeptical mind was listening. Despite her doubts, She began practicing something incredibly simple during anxious moments. Instead of fighting the anxiety or trying to make it disappear through various techniques, she would silently acknowledge the divine presence within her. She'd recognize that her true identity was divine consciousness, temporarily experiencing these emotions, which created a crucial space between her true self and the temporary emotional weather passing through her awareness. The transformation didn't happen overnight like some miracle, but within just a few weeks, something fundamental began shifting in Sarah's entire experience. The anxiety didn't vanish completely, but her relationship to it changed so profoundly that the same feelings no longer had the power to disturb her inner peace and stability. She discovered still water beneath turbulent waves. By the third month, people started commenting on something different about her presence, a quality of stillness and quiet confidence that seemed to radiate naturally without any effort on her part. Then there's Michael's story, which demonstrates how this recognition transforms even the most practical concerns like finances and survival. After his business failed and debts mounted to overwhelming proportions, Michael felt absolutely desperate. Everything he'd worked for throughout his adult life was crashing down around him. He was losing sleep, snapping at his family, feeling completely abandoned by any sense of divine support or guidance. When a friend introduced him to Wigglesworth's teachings about divine sonship and infinite supply, Michael's first thought was, how is abstract spiritual philosophy going to pay my mortgage? He struggled to see any connection between recognizing his spiritual identity and solving concrete financial obligations. But here's where the breakthrough happened. And it's crucial to understand this mechanism because it's where most people get stuck trying to use spirituality as a tool rather than living from it as their reality. The transformation came when Michael completely stopped trying to use spiritual truth as a technique to fix his financial situation. Instead of treating these teachings as a manifestation method or law of attraction formula, he began living from the recognition of his spiritual identity as consciousness, in which infinite supply already exists. Not as a strategy to get money, but as simple acknowledgement of what was true about his nature, regardless of his bank account balance. Now, here's what happened next that reveals something profound about how consciousness actually operates in relation to our material circumstances. Write in the comments, "My source is within," if you're recognizing how this applies to your own situation right now. Within 8 months, Michael's financial situation had completely turned around. New opportunities appeared through the most unexpected channels. Former clients he hadn't heard from in years reached out with profitable projects. Investment opportunities surfaced through casual conversations. Doors opened that he never could have planned or anticipated. But here's what Michael says was the real miracle. His entire relationship to security and abundance underwent complete transformation. He no longer lived in constant fear about money because he finally understood that his true source was the infinite consciousness within him, not external circumstances or market conditions. Now, if those stories inspire you, let me share one that stretches into territory that most people find hard to believe until they see it with their own eyes. Margaret's doctors gave her 6 months to live. Advanced cancer had spread throughout her body, and conventional treatments had failed to slow its progression. She was terrified, angry, and devastated at the thought of leaving her young children without a mother. When someone suggested to her that Christ consciousness was her true identity and that this recognition could change everything, Margaret's response was pure fury. How dare someone offer spiritual platitudes during a medical crisis this serious? She had real cancer cells multiplying in her body, not some abstract spiritual problem that could be solved with positive thinking or religious beliefs. But in her darkest moment of absolute despair, something shifted. She became willing to consider that there might be a truth about her identity that existed beyond medical diagnosis and statistical prognoses. Margaret began spending time each day, not praying desperately for healing or bargaining with God, but simply resting in the quiet recognition of her spiritual wholeness that existed prior to any physical condition. This wasn't denial of her medical situation or refusal to continue appropriate treatment. It was recognition of her deeper identity that remained whole and perfect regardless of what appeared to be happening to her physical form. She started seeing her body as temporary expression rather than her actual self. 6 months later, when her doctors ran follow-up tests expecting to discuss hospice options, they found something they couldn't explain. All traces of cancer had completely disappeared from her body. Multiple scans confirmed it. Her oncologist used words like highly unusual and spontaneous remission. But Margaret herself will tell you something different. She insists the real healing wasn't physical. It was recognizing who she truly was beyond any temporary physical experience. These transformations aren't random luck or special exceptions reserved for particularly spiritual people. They're natural expressions of what happens when you shift your identity from limited human personality to divine consciousness. But here's the practical question everyone asks. How do you actually maintain this recognition throughout your day when you're not in crisis, when you're just going about ordinary activities? Wigglesworth taught something he called the listening attitude, and it's deceptively simple yet profoundly effective. This isn't about trying to hear God speak to you in words or waiting for mystical experiences to validate your practice. It's maintaining gentle awareness of divine presence within your consciousness during all activities. Washing dishes, sitting in traffic, working at your computer, having conversations. You take brief moments throughout your day to silently acknowledge a simple truth. The Christ that I am is present right now. You don't try to feel anything special or achieve any particular spiritual state. You simply recognize this truth about your identity in the present moment, allowing it to gradually shift your center of identity from constantly changing circumstances and emotions to the changeless divine consciousness within you. Let me show you exactly how to integrate this recognition into the specific challenges and situations you're facing right now in your actual life. Write in the comments, "I'm listening," if you're ready to practice this awareness starting today. But this recognition doesn't just transform your own experience. It completely changes every single relationship and interaction you have with other people. And this is where Wigglesworth's teaching becomes incredibly practical for your daily life. Because most of your stress, frustration, and emotional turmoil comes from how you relate to the people around you. Here's what most of us do unconsciously. We look at people and immediately identify them with their problems, their circumstances, their personality patterns, their past behavior. Your coworker is the difficult one. Your family member is always so negative. Your friend is struggling with their health. You're not wrong about what you're observing. These appearances are real in the human dimension. But when you identify people solely with these temporary expressions, you lock them into that pattern in your own consciousness. And more importantly, you reinforce it in their experience of themselves. Wigglesworth discovered something revolutionary about human interaction. In every encounter, you can choose to silently recognize the spiritual identity of the person in front of you, rather than identifying them with their problems or current circumstances. You're not ignoring reality or pretending their challenges don't exist. You're simply maintaining awareness of what they truly are beneath all temporary appearances. You're seeing the divine consciousness expressing as this unique individual, temporarily experiencing whatever human conditions are present. This recognition profoundly affects relationships in ways that feel almost magical, but are actually completely natural. People begin sensing something different in your presence without being able to articulate exactly what it is. They feel more peaceful around you. Solutions to their problems become clearer. Their own inner wisdom surfaces more easily. And here's the beautiful part. You're not trying to change anyone, fix their problems, or convince them of spiritual truth. You're simply maintaining awareness of what they truly are, which creates an atmosphere where their own recognition can naturally emerge. Think about the impact this has on challenging relationships. That person who always triggers you, the family member you've been in conflict with for years, the colleague who drives you crazy. When you begin recognizing their divine nature while still setting appropriate boundaries and handling practical matters with wisdom, something shifts. The dynamic loosens. Old patterns start dissolving. Sometimes the external relationship improves dramatically, but even when it doesn't, your inner experience of the relationship transforms completely because you're no longer caught in reactive patterns. Now let's talk about what happens with your own difficult emotions, because this is where most spiritual seekers create unnecessary suffering for themselves. When anger, fear, sadness, or any challenging emotion arises in your experience, the typical response is either to fight it, suppress it, try to understand why it's happening, or get lost in it and let it define your entire state. All of these approaches create problems because they're based on identifying yourself with the emotion. Wigglesworth taught something far more liberating. When difficult emotions arise, instead of fighting them or analyzing them, you recognize your true identity. You acknowledge silently, I'm experiencing this emotion right now, but this emotion is not what I am. I am the divine consciousness observing this temporary emotional weather pattern passing through my awareness. Can you feel the difference in that approach? You're not denying the emotion or pretending it isn't there. You're not suppressing it or trying to think positively. You're simply recognizing that your essential nature remains untouched by any temporary feeling state, creating healthy space between your true identity and passing emotional experiences. This allows emotions to move through your system naturally without getting stuck or defining who you are. They arise, they're fully felt and acknowledged, and they pass, like clouds moving across the sky. The sky itself remains clear and spacious, regardless of whatever weather patterns move through it. But there's something even deeper here that most people miss about how this recognition actually works in practice, something that reveals the hidden mechanics of consciousness transformation. Write in the comments, I am the observer, if this shift in perspective is clicking for you right now. You know, if you've made it all the way to this point in the video, that tells me something important about you. You're not just casually browsing for entertainment, you're genuinely seeking truth. Willing to question everything you've been taught, ready to discover what lies beneath the surface of conventional spiritual teaching. That's rare, and I want you to know I see that quality in you. This channel exists for people exactly like you, seekers who are tired of surface-level spirituality and ready for the profound recognition that actually transforms lives. Every video we create here is designed to take you deeper into these life-changing truths that people like Smith Wigglesworth discovered through direct experience. So if this resonated with you, if something inside you recognized the truth in what we've explored together today, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. You'll be notified every time we release new content that continues unpacking these powerful spiritual principles. And here's what I'd love to know. If you stuck with me all the way to the end, write in the comments, this message was meant for me. When I see those comments, it lets me know these truths are landing exactly where they need to, reaching the people who are ready to receive them. It creates a community of recognition, people who are all discovering their divine nature together. If you found value in this exploration, hit that like button. It helps this message reach others who are searching for exactly what you just discovered. Sometimes one video, one recognition, one moment of clarity can change the entire trajectory of someone's spiritual journey. And listen, we're just getting started. There's a video right here that takes this understanding even deeper, revealing practical techniques you can use immediately to anchor this recognition in your daily experience. Click it and continue with me over there. I think you're going to find it's exactly what you need to hear next.